I always thought betrayal would arrive loud, like glass shattering or tires screeching, but for me, it came as a whisper. The applause echoed like champagne flutes clinking against the Portland sky. Laughter swirled around me, warm and buoyant, as golden lights bathed the marble steps of the museum entrance. Everything looked perfect, felt perfect, until Corinne leaned in and said, "We have to leave." My smile faltered mid-photo. The camera flash caught it, just a flicker of confusion, but I felt it like a slap. Her voice hadn't trembled. Her eyes didn't blink. Just that urgent, low tone curling in my ear like smoke. I blinked. "What do you mean?" She was already pulling me by the wrist, her manicured nails pressing lightly into my skin. "Just trust me. If you've ever had someone look you dead in the eye, someone you've loved, trusted, grown up with, and suddenly they feel like a stranger. Yeah, that's what this felt like. Stay with me. Because if you've ever questioned the people closest to you, or had your gut whisper before your mind could make sense of it, this story's for you. Because nothing that happened started with a crime. It started with charm, and secrets sewn into silk gowns. My name is Elise Caldwell. I'm 34. I run a small investigative column in Portland. Nothing fancy, just human interest stories with teeth. My mom, Verna, built a legacy through philanthropy. This fundraiser? It was her crown jewel. But back then, I wasn't thinking about family legacy or investigative instincts. I was thinking, why does my best friend look terrified? The night air hit us like a wall as we stepped outside. Autumn in Portland always carries that sharp edge, damp leaves, streetlight shimmer, whispers of rain waiting to fall. I let Corinne tug me halfway down the steps before I dug in my heels. "Corinne, what's going on?" She hesitated, just for a second, and in that pause I saw something flash across her face. Guilt, panic, whatever it was, it vanished. "Something's off," she said. I didn't feel safe." "Safe from what?" My voice rose. People passed us, smiling, nodding, still caught in the fundraiser's golden afterglow. The city buzzed around us, normal, beautiful, except for the chill in my bones. Corinne didn't answer. Instead, she reached for her clutch, and that's when it happened. It slipped, just slightly, fell open, and a small silver USB drive hit the concrete with a tiny click. Neither of us moved. For a second, it was like time cracked. She bent down fast, but not fast enough. I saw the panic in her eyes. That panic she hadn't shown when she dragged me out of the fundraiser. She scooped it up like it was nothing, laughing lightly. "Just backup files." I didn't laugh. I couldn't. My stomach was tight, too tight. Her hand grazed my arm. "Let's just go. Please." But I didn't move. My shoes stayed planted on that stone stair, heart thudding. Something about her didn't fit anymore. The woman beside me wasn't the same Corinne who'd held my hair when I was sick in college, who sent flowers when my dad passed, who called my mom second family. And yet, there she stood, in the same elegant green dress I helped her pick out, same smoky eyeliner, same laugh, but it didn't reach her eyes. I managed a nod just to end the moment. We parted ways in the parking lot, and I watched her taillights disappear into the fog. But long after her car turned the corner, I stood there, frozen. I stared at it until the screen dimmed. That night, I couldn't sleep. My fingers hovered over my laptop. I kept thinking about the USB, the way her hand had jerked, the way she hadn't looked me in the eye when she said backup files. I told myself it was paranoia, a long day, a weird moment, but my gut was screaming. And when I stepped into the kitchen to make tea, I noticed something odd. A second USB drive, sitting on the counter. The exact same design, silver, unlabeled, it wasn't mine. And I hadn't seen Corinne drop it, so how did it end up in my purse? The kettle whistled, but all I could hear was her voice echoing again. "We have to leave." The next morning, I stared at the USB drive like it might bite. It sat on my desk, next to a cold cup of tea I'd forgotten to drink. Thin, silver, silent, but somehow louder than anything else in the room. Every time I looked away, I swore I felt its presence pulling at me, like a thread coming loose, begging to be tugged. But before I could open it, my phone buzzed. "Verna's committee brunch, 10:00 a.m. plus my place. You're still coming, right? Corinne. I blinked at the screen. Corinne. After last night, she was just carrying on like nothing happened? A chill bloomed across my skin. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I reached for my coat. Corinne's townhouse was perched in one of those polished neighborhoods with too much symmetry, perfect hedges, silent driveways, the occasional hummingbird feeder that never seemed to attract birds. Her living room smelled like cinnamon and new paint. Too clean, too prepared. Elise, she beamed when I stepped inside, like I hadn't watched her drop a USB and lie to my face 12 hours earlier. Around her, the brunch buzzed with laughter. Women in tasteful blazers sipped Prosecco while discussing gala figures and guest lists. Corinne moved through them like light through water, graceful, warm, untouchable. But I couldn't stop staring at her left hand. She gestured often when she spoke, always had. But now it was too deliberate, almost performative, like she was hiding a tremor or trying to distract. I watched her laugh at something Verna said, then gently steer the conversation to next quarter's initiatives. Her voice was velvet. Her eyes scanned the room like a chess player sizing up every piece. She caught me watching. Her smile flickered, just for a heartbeat. Then she waved me over. I kept my voice steady. You dropped something last night. She tilted her head. Dropped what? A USB. A pause, then a bright, too-quick laugh. Oh, that old thing? Just backup files, gala guest lists, budget projections, boring stuff. She touched my arm lightly. Relax. But her fingers gripped tighter than they needed to, and her eyes didn't match the laugh. I nodded, but every instinct screamed. Something was off. Something was wrong. Still, I played along, because sometimes when you're not sure who you're dealing with, pretending is safer than asking. Halfway through the brunch, I ducked into the hallway for air. That's when I heard it. Corinne's voice, hushed but sharp, just behind the slightly ajar study door. It's almost done, yes. Keep the accounts ready. We move next week. My breath hitched. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. A muffled voice responded. Male, maybe. I couldn't make out the words, just the rhythm, the urgency. Corinne's voice again. She suspects nothing. Just stay quiet until I signal. A chill crawled down my back. I backed away slowly, heart hammering against my ribs. I made some excuse, slipped out early. Outside, the air hit me like a slap, cool, damp, real. I drove straight home, parked crooked in the driveway, and just sat there for a full minute with the engine ticking under the hood. Who the hell was she talking to? Back inside, I shut all the blinds and locked the door. Only then did I reach for the USB again, but I didn't open it, not yet. Instead, I stared at the photo on the mantel. Me, Corinne, and Mom. 3 women, arms around each other, all smiles. It was from 2 summers ago, on the balcony of Verna's lake house. We looked like family. Was that all it had ever been? Just a performance? My phone pinged. A new message. Don't overthink things, Elise. You look tense today. Call me later? I stared at the heart emoji. My thumb hovered. I didn't respond. Instead, I walked to my bedroom and slid the USB deep into the back of my jewelry box. But I wasn't done. Not yet. Later that night, I sat in bed, knees pulled to my chest, staring into the dark. The room felt too still. Even the ticking clock on the wall sounded too loud. My mind kept circling back to her voice. She suspects nothing. I replayed that moment on the steps, the slip of her clutch, the second USB on my counter. And now, this call, this code, this eerie calm. And yet, maybe the worst part was that I still wanted to believe her. Corinne had been with me through everything. My first heartbreak. My father's funeral. She knew how I liked my coffee, knew which songs made me cry. She was the first person I called when my article on the Portland gentrification crisis got picked up by NPR. But tonight, when I closed my eyes, I didn't see her smile. I saw the way her fingers curled around my wrist. I saw the way she whispered in the dark. I reached for my laptop. My hand hesitated over the trackpad. Then I did something I never thought I'd have to do with my best friend. I Googled her name. I couldn't sleep. Again. The clock blinked 2:47 a.m., casting that sickly blue glow across the walls. Outside, the wind pressed against the windows like it was trying to get in. I sat on the edge of my bed, bare feet on hardwood, laptop open in my lap like a loaded gun. The USB drive was already in. My hand hovered over the trackpad. My fingers tingled. This was it, the line between suspicion and truth, between holding on to the version of Corinne I thought I knew and letting her fall away completely. Click. A folder popped open. Verna's Trust, final reports. My stomach clenched. Dozens of files blinked back at me. PDFs, spreadsheets, scanned letters. Some were labeled innocuously enough. Budget reconciliation, Q4 pledge forecast, silent donor summary. But the numbers, they weren't right. Pages and pages of donation reports, transfers, fund withdrawals, amounts that made my mouth go dry. $500,000 here, 75 grand there, names I didn't recognize. And at the bottom of every document, Corinne's name. In tiny, clean signature lines. I scrolled faster. One file showed a wire transfer to a foundation I'd never heard of, Golden Elm Initiative. The routing numbers matched an account from my mom's primary trust. My hands trembled. These weren't gala spreadsheets. These were my mother's private accounts. Real money, real signatures, real damage. Corinne had access. I shut the laptop abruptly. The screen slammed shut louder than I intended. My pulse hammered in my neck. My breath fogged up the cold glass as I stood at the window and stared out. Empty streets. A single street lamp flickered at the corner. No cars, no movement. Just the hum of something wrong sinking deeper into my bones. Was this what betrayal felt like? Not a scream, not a slap. Just silence. Slowly hollowing you out from the inside. I thought of Mom, of Verna. Her soft eyes when she talked about Corinne's fresh ideas. The way she smiled whenever Corinne praised her legacy. She trusted her. She admired her. She called her the daughter I never had. I bit the inside of my cheek hard enough to taste metal. A sharp click jolted me, the fridge compressor probably, but it made me jump. I grabbed my robe and paced. Every time I stopped, I could feel the weight of that USB again, like it wanted to crawl back out of the laptop and whisper all its secrets at once. I needed answers. I needed someone to see this with me. I opened the laptop again. At the bottom of the folder, one locked file. Private, vtrust.archive.anc encrypted. Password protected. Of course. I rubbed my temples. My skin felt too tight on my face. Then a thought struck me. I knew Corinne's favorite passwords. We'd lived together for 3 years during grad school. She was lazy back then. Always used childhood references. I typed PercyCat89, incorrect. GalaQueen25, still wrong. I tried 5, 6 more, then stopped. My eyes burned. My heart hurt. I sat there staring at the locked file, feeling like it was staring back. That's when my phone buzzed. 1. New message, Corinne. Hey, can we meet? Just us? Tomorrow. I'll explain everything. I didn't respond. Instead, I copied the folder and dragged it into a hidden backup on my hard drive. Then I stood, walked down the hall, and stopped at the linen closet. Buried behind towels and old blankets, I pulled out a fireproof box I hadn't opened in years. Inside, a passport, a few old press credentials, and the notebook I kept when Dad died. When things got bad, I flipped it open. Half the pages were smudged with tears from a different life, but the back pages, blank. I pressed pen to paper. Corinne's voice from the study. It's almost done. The USB, the accounts, the transfer, all of it went down, one line at a time. My own little evidence log. At 9:03 a.m. the next morning, I sat in my car outside the cafe she suggested. Steam curled from the top of my takeout coffee, untouched. Across the street, the door to the cafe opened. Corinne walked out like nothing had happened, like she hadn't sent that text at midnight, like she wasn't walking around with my mother's future in her hands. But her smile faltered when she saw me. I didn't wave, I didn't move, I just watched her. And as she turned to walk away, toward her sleek black SUV, I saw something fall from her purse again. No clutch this time, just a regular leather tote. It hit the sidewalk with a tiny clink. She didn't even notice. I got out of my car and crossed the street. There it was. Another USB drive, same brand, same silver casing, just like before. This time, I didn't hesitate. I picked it up and slipped it into my coat pocket. As I turned to leave, I glanced back. She was watching me now, frozen on the sidewalk. She knew I had it. I got in my car, shut the door, locked it. My fingers were shaking again, but this time it wasn't fear. It was something sharper, something closer to fury and curiosity, because if that drive was anything like the first one, then what the hell was she hiding now? The second USB sat on my desk like a secret begging to be told, but I didn't open it, not yet. Instead, I sat in the back corner of Fireside Cafe, the seat with the cracked leather booth and the chipped mug that no one ever fixed. Outside, a storm flirted with the city, wind kicking up leaves, sky awash of pewter. Portland in late October had that smell. Damp pavement, old wood, something quietly rotting under the surface. I was early. I always am when I'm anxious. Then the door chimed. Corinne walked in like she owned the air. Her coat was belted tight, hair still flawless despite the gusts. She spotted me, smiled that sweet, calculated smile, and slid into the booth across from me like we were old friends catching up. "Thanks for meeting," she said softly. "I know things have felt off." I said nothing, just folded my hands and waited. She ordered a lavender tea, then leaned in slightly, elbows on the table like she was about to deliver a confession, but what came out was polished. "You saw those documents," she said, not asking. "The USB." I didn't flinch. "You dropped it, twice." Corinne sighed. "I didn't mean for it to get this far. But Elise, I swear, it's not what you think. Those transfers, the names, it's all for the charity. We've had to get creative. Donors pull out. Funds stall. I didn't want to burden Verna." She touched her chest lightly, like that made it sincere. "Creative?" I repeated, the word cutting like glass. She nodded, tone gentle, almost maternal. "I know how it looks, but I've built something incredible here, for your mother, for Portland. You know how slow the board can be? How many hands try to take a slice before anything reaches the people who actually need it?" Her hand reached across the table, resting on mine. I didn't pull away, but I didn't return the gesture either. "You forged donor letters," I said, voice low. She blinked, just once. "Temporarily, just to keep momentum. The real donations were coming. We just needed a bridge. A bridge made of lies." She tilted her head, the way she used to when we were in school and she was trying to explain away late rent or a missed deadline. "You remember how hard it was starting out, don't you? Sometimes we bend things just to make them fit long enough to work." Her voice was silk, every word carefully weighted. But I kept thinking of the numbers, the passwords, the locked folders. I wanted to scream. Instead, I reached into my bag and pulled out the second USB, set it on the table between us like a card in a high-stakes game. She froze. "What's this?" "You tell me." Her mouth parted just slightly, then curved into something between a smirk and a sigh. "You don't trust me." "No, I don't." A flash of something passed over her face. Fury? Regret? It vanished as fast as it came. She leaned back, folding her arms. "It's always been like this with you. The moment something feels out of place, you go into detective mode. You can't help it." "And you go into performance mode," I said quietly. Silence settled between us, tight as piano wire. Then she said it, smooth, precise. "Verna's about to sign a check, a big one, for the new shelter downtown. If you stir this up now, if you go looking for villains in the shadows, you'll ruin it." My blood went cold because it wasn't a warning. It was leverage. "I think you should take a breath," she added, voice soft. "Give me a few days. Let me show you the full plan. No secrets. Just context." I pushed the USB back toward her. She didn't take it. "I need to go," I said, standing up. Her eyes followed me, calm, unreadable. "Elise, don't ruin this." She said it like a favor, like a threat with a smile wrapped around it. Back in my apartment, I dumped my bag on the floor and went straight to my room. My fingers itched to open the second USB, but something stopped me. Instead, I pulled out my journal again. The smell of ink and old paper grounded me. I scribbled down everything, every word, every inflection, every flicker of emotion in her voice. But the part that haunted me most wasn't the forged letters or the funds. It was the way she talked about my mother. So casual, so possessive. "Verna's about to sign a check. Not your mom, not Verna Caldwell, just Verna, like she belonged to her now."
That night, I dreamed about the lake house again, about the time Mom handed Corinne the keys for the boat and said, "She's more careful than you, Elise." I remember laughing it off, teasing her. Now I couldn't forget the way Corinne grinned as she steered us away from shore. I woke up sweating. At 6:41 the next morning, I called Mom. She answered on the second ring, cheerful. "Sweetheart, everything okay?" I swallowed hard. "Hey, just wanted to check in. You doing anything with Corinne today?" "Oh yes, she's dropping by later. We're finalizing the grant paperwork." My stomach twisted. "Which grant?" "The downtown shelter one, the big one we've been working on." I forced my voice steady. "Just be careful with what you sign, okay?" A pause. "Elise," she said gently, "I know you've never liked feeling left out of these decisions, but Corinne's been a godsend. I trust her." I nodded into the silence, but inside, something broke. And that's when I knew I couldn't wait anymore. Whatever was on that USB, I had to see it. Now.
Midnight pressed against the apartment like a held breath. Rain ticked at the window, slow, insistent, while the only light came from my desk lamp, a lone circle of amber in the dark. The second USB glinted beside my laptop, daring me to finish what I'd started. I wiped clammy palms on my jeans and slid it in. A single encrypted folder stared back. Private. vtrustarchive.nc. My pulse skittered. I'd already burned through every childhood password Corinne used to swear by. One left, an inside joke from senior year she thought nobody remembered. Type, enter. Silence. Then the folder bloomed open like a wound. First file, a Washington State driver's license. Same birthday, similar smile, but a different name. Corinne Larson. Not Corinne Bennett, the woman who toasted my mother's legacy and called herself family. This Larson lived in Seattle, 200 miles and one reality away. My stomach folded in on itself. The photo was a little older, hair 2 shades darker, but it was her. No mistaking those fox-sharp eyes. I clicked the next document, an arrest record sealed by a dismissal. Fraud investigation, 2023. Case closed when the prime suspect vanished. Heat rushed to my face. I scrolled faster. Bank statements tied to a Golden Elm initiative, the same shell that siphoned Mom's trust funds. Transfers, withdrawals, neatly laundered through small nonprofits no one would bother auditing. And then a PDF of a newspaper clipping. Family in Bellevue swindled out of $3.2 million, daughter's best friend under scrutiny. My vision blurred. I forced myself to read. Lavish fundraiser, charismatic organizer, misplaced trust. The story felt like a mirror held up to my life. Only their daughter hadn't caught on in time. She'd lost everything. The room tilted. Mouse trembling, I opened a final subfolder labeled Photos. The thumbnails loaded in neat, cruel rows. Corinne arm in arm with strangers at charity galas. Corinne shaking hands with city councilors. Corinne laughing beside a tall man in a charcoal suit whose face I didn't recognize. One shot stopped me cold. Her hand slipped into his back pocket. Intimate, proprietary. Date stamp. 4 months before she reappeared in Portland. Who was he? Partner? Handler? Accomplice? My chest tightened so hard I thought it might crack. I dragged the photo to my desktop, enlarging it until the pixels quivered. The man had a thin scar along his jaw and eyes like shuttered windows, impossible to read. Thunder rolled outside, shaking the panes. I flinched, heart galloping. Breathe, Elise. Think. I copied everything onto an external drive, tucked it into my sock drawer, and paced the living room. Floorboards groaned under every step, the apartment suddenly too small for the weight of the truth. Memory flickered, sophomore year, dorm hallway, Corinne sneaking an overdue rent notice into the trash, turning to me with that same dazzling smile. Small hiccup, she'd said, all fixed now. I'd believed her. I always did. Heat crawled up my neck. How many hiccups had I waved off? A new tremor rattled the windows. Tree branches scratched like fingernails against glass. The storm was swelling, echoing the fist thudding inside my ribs. I grabbed my phone with unsteady fingers and called Nolan. He answered on the first ring. "Sis, it's late. You okay?" "No." My voice cracked. "Nolan, she's not who we think. I found a fake ID. Larson with a Seattle address. And an old fraud case. Millions." Words tumbled out, frantic, half-sobbed. There's a man in the pictures with her. I don't know who. We were all targets." For a heartbeat, only Rain answered, then a sharp inhale on his end. Elise, I think I just saw that guy." "What?" "Tonight, outside Mom's place." His voice dropped, tight. Stocky, gray coat, scar on the jaw. He was talking to Corinne on the porch. I thought he was a driver. Ice slid down my spine. "Did Mom sign anything?" "I don't know." I knocked. Corinne answered, said they were finishing paperwork and Mom had gone to bed. His breath hitched. "She shut the door in my face, Elise." The room spun again. I pressed a palm to the wall to steady myself. Lightning flashed, throwing my shadow huge and trembling across the floor. "Nolan, listen." I forced my words slow, hard as nails. "I have proof now. Documents, transfers, everything. We need to get Mom away from her. Tomorrow, first thing." He exhaled, shaky relief. "I'm with you, but be careful. If she knows you have this..." He trailed off. I stared at the open laptop. The cursor blinked beside Corinne's fake name, mocking me. "She already suspects." Another jagged flash of lightning lit the street outside, and for a split second, a silhouette stood by the lamppost opposite my window. Coat collar high, face lost in shadow, watching. I jerked back, heart slamming. The figure vanished into darkness before I could catch a second look. Had he been there all night? The apartment felt suddenly porous, every lock flimsy. I yanked the curtains shut, forcing a shaky laugh that tasted sour. Paranoia, maybe. Or maybe not. "Elise?" Nolan's voice pulled me back. "You still there?" "Yeah." My gaze fixed on the curtains, expecting them to ripple. "Meet me at Mom's at 9. Bring your dash cam footage, anything you've got." "Got it. And Elise, we end this." "Tomorrow," I whispered. "Tomorrow." After we hung up, I shut down the laptop, slipped the second USB into my jacket pocket, and double-checked every deadbolt. The storm had settled into a steady percussion, like a heartbeat I couldn't escape, but sleep wouldn't come. I sat on the couch, knees drawn up, listening for footsteps that never quite arrived, staring at the door as if it might open on its own. In the hush before dawn, a new thought crawled in. Corinne wasn't just siphoning money, she was rewriting herself, shedding identities like skins. If Larson was one mask, how many others waited in the dark? And which one would show up at Mom's doorstep tomorrow? A lone gust rattled the mailbox slot, a metallic clang that echoed through the flat. I jolted upright, pulse spiking. Because suddenly I was sure of one thing. Corinne wasn't going to sit back and let her cards be shown. She would move first. I arrived at Mom's house just after 8:30, the morning mist still clinging to the grass like a second skin. Nolan's car was already parked at the curb. I could see his outline in the driver's seat, head bent, probably reviewing the footage he mentioned. My fingers gripped the steering wheel harder than I meant to. The house looked the same. White shutters, trimmed rose bushes, her signature bluebird wind chime swaying lazily by the porch, but everything felt wrong. Like walking into a home staged for someone else's memory. Nolan stepped out just as I did. He wore that same hoodie from college, the one that always looked slightly too big, as if he hadn't quite grown into adulthood yet. But today his eyes were sharp, alert, haunted. "She's in there," he said. "You saw the guy again?" He nodded once. "Yesterday. Gray coat, talking to Corinne. He handed her something before leaving through the side gate." I glanced toward the yard. The hedges still glistened with dew, undisturbed, but now even the silence felt like it was hiding something. We walked up the porch together. My mother opened the door with a smile that collapsed the moment she saw our faces. "Sweethearts, what?" "We need to talk," I said. Inside, the air smelled like fresh cinnamon rolls and lavender polish. A candle flickered on the entry table, the same brand she always used. Comfort, ritual, the illusion of safety. She led us to the sitting room. Corinne wasn't there, thank God. "I only have a few minutes," Mom said lightly, settling into the armchair by the fireplace. "Corinne's in the office getting the final paperwork ready for the grant." Nolan and I shared a glance. I sat on the edge of the couch, leaning forward. "Mom, please, just listen. I found something. Multiple things." I pulled out the flash drive and the printed screenshots I'd prepped at 4 a.m. Corinne's fake ID, the financial transfers, the Bellevue article. Nolan added a still frame from his dash cam. Corinne and the man with the scar, shaking hands beneath the porch light. Verna's smile faded. She scanned the pages slowly, like she was translating from a foreign language. This isn't... She looked up. Are you saying Corinne's a criminal? She's not Corinne Bennett, Mom. Her real name is Corinne Larson, and this isn't the first time she's done this. Mom's mouth opened, then shut. She reached for her necklace, her tell. A nervous twitch she'd had since I was a kid. Those funds she helped facilitate? They weren't transfers. They were drains. Quiet ones. She wouldn't, Verna whispered. She wouldn't do that to me. She already has. Her hands trembled slightly. I saw the accounts myself. She showed me all the numbers, all the receipts, because she wanted you to, because she knew exactly what to show and what to hide. Silence thickened around us. Then a soft voice cut through it. Is everything all right in here? Corinne stood in the doorway, polished, calm, eyes wide with concern, not guilt. I stood up fast. Verna, she said gently, ignoring me. Did something happen? Mom looked between us. Her expression had shifted, confused, uncertain. A woman caught in a rip current of trust and doubt. Corinne, I said, you lied about who you are. You stole from my family. Her eyebrows lifted just slightly. Elise, I understand you're upset. I know this whole process has been overwhelming. You forged donor letters. You created a fake charity front. I have proof. A pause. She stepped further into the room. And where did you get this supposed proof? Does it matter? Nolan snapped. You dropped your mask. I think, she said softly, what's happening here is a mix of fear and projection. She turned to Mom. Verna, I would never betray your trust. Everything I've done has been to support your legacy. Verna looked lost, torn. I stepped forward. She's manipulating you. Corinne's jaw tensed for half a second, then she smiled again. Elise, she said slowly, voice silk-wrapped steel, you've always needed someone to blame when things didn't go your way, when you didn't get the story you wanted, the headline, the win. That's not... You want me to be the villain because that's easier than realizing this foundation. This world your mother built doesn't need you to run it. Her words hit like gravel under the skin, and Verna, she was staring down at the photo now, the one from Bellevue. Her thumb traced Corinne's face like she couldn't recognize it. I need time, Mom whispered. I turned toward her. You don't have time. But she stood up. I need to think, alone. Corinne stayed perfectly still, hands clasped in front of her. The embodiment of calm. I wanted to scream. Nolan touched my arm. Come on. We left the sitting room in silence. On our way out, I saw Corinne slide the papers from the table into her leather portfolio. Her fingers lingered a beat too long on the photo of the man with the scar. Once we were in the driveway, I exhaled for the first time. She's still got her claws in, I muttered. I know, Nolan said, but now Mom's seen it. That's something. I looked back at the house, and just then I saw Corinne standing in the upstairs window, watching us, smiling. No panic, no retreat, because she wasn't done yet. It started with a feeling. You know the one, when the hairs on the back of your neck lift for no reason, and your breath goes shallow even though nothing's changed around you. That's how it felt the night after we confronted Corinne. I was driving home from Verna's, the road slick with late autumn rain, windshield wipers carving lazy arcs across glass. Headlights smeared against the wet pavement like oil on canvas. I glanced in the rearview mirror. Nothing. Just the occasional glint of street lamp on soaked asphalt. Still, the unease hung there, sour and insistent. At the next light, I turned left instead of right. A random detour, a loop through a residential neighborhood. 2 blocks later, I checked the mirror again. A black sedan. No headlights. Same distance. Same crawl. My grip tightened around the steering wheel. I made another random turn, then another. The sedan turned each time. My chest squeezed, heartbeat rising in my throat like bile. I reached for my phone, but my fingers were too stiff. I forced them to move. Call Nolan. It rang. Once. Twice. Elise? I think someone's following me. I heard the shift in his voice immediately. Where are you? Burnside. I took a turn up 42nd, just past the old garden center. Drive to the police station, now. I'll meet you there. I didn't argue. I turned hard at the next intersection, tires skidding on slick leaves, and floored it. The sedan stayed back, never speeding, never closing the gap, just watching. By the time I reached the precinct, the car had vanished. I parked crooked, hands still shaking, and stumbled out into the rain. Nolan pulled in minutes later. He barely waited for his engine to die before he was at my side. You okay? I nodded. They followed me for blocks. No plates. He looked past me into the dark. Could have been Corinne, or someone working with her. Or the man with the scar. We sat in the car while the rain drummed against the roof. I closed my eyes, head against the headrest. This isn't just about fraud anymore. No, Nolan said. It's bigger. I could feel the truth settling in. Heavy, undeniable. Later that night, back home, I found an envelope wedged beneath my front door. No stamp, no name, just one line typed in bold. Stop digging, no punctuation, no signature. My throat closed up. I backed away from the door, every shadow in the apartment suddenly alive. I locked the deadbolt, then the chain, then checked every window. Twice. Panic had a pulse. And right now, it was pounding through me like a war drum. I sank onto the couch, fingers digging into the cushion. I'd always thought I'd be braver in a moment like this, but fear, real fear, it doesn't always look like screaming or sprinting. Sometimes it just freezes you in place. I stared at the envelope still on the floor like it might detonate. When the panic passed, what replaced it wasn't calm. It was fury. I opened my laptop and started compiling everything again. Copies of the fake ID, financial documents, photo logs, the Bellevue case, Corinne's aliases, the Shadow Man's scar. I sent it to 2 places, Nolan and a secure cloud backup I'd used for stories before. If they were trying to scare me into silence, they picked the wrong Caldwell. Then I opened my journal. I wrote down everything, every moment that still nagged at me. Corinne's casual remarks about privacy, her hesitation when I mentioned Bellevue, that time she accidentally left her tablet unlocked at brunch, then snatched it away when I glanced at the screen. I couldn't prove it yet, but I had instincts, and those instincts were screaming. The next morning I barely slept. My nerves were taut, every noise amplified. The buzz of the fridge, the groan of floorboards, even the birds outside sounded like alarms. I dressed quickly and left the apartment just after 7 o'clock a.m. I took side streets, eyes flicking to mirrors at every turn. No black sedan. Still, I parked 2 blocks from Mom's place just to be sure. As I approached on foot, I saw her through the kitchen window, pouring coffee, robe tied at the waist, humming along to something soft on the radio. Peaceful, oblivious. She didn't know she was living in a war zone. I knocked. She opened the door, startled but smiling. Elise, honey, what are you doing here so early? I stepped inside, kept my voice even. We need to talk, now. She poured me a mug. I didn't drink it. We're being watched, I said. Someone followed me last night, left a threat at my door. Her smile vanished. What? I handed her the envelope. She read the note, fingers trembling slightly. Oh my God. And Corinne? What about her? She's in deeper than we thought. This isn't just about mismanaging donations. She's got someone working with her, possibly the same man from the dash cam footage Nolan recorded. I paused. And Mom? I think she's after everything. Verna sat down hard at the table. I want to believe you, she whispered, but part of me keeps seeing the girl who helped me through chemo, the one who remembered my birthday when you forgot. Guilt cut deep. I get it, I said softly. But that girl doesn't exist, if she ever did. Silence stretched between us. Then a sudden sound, soft, deliberate, interrupted it. A creak. From the back hallway. We both turned. I stood slowly, heart hammering, and stepped toward the noise. Then, a shadow flickered past the hall mirror. A footstep. Someone was in the house. I turned sharply, sprinted to the hall, empty. The back door was ajar. I ran out onto the dewy patio. The side gate clicked shut just out of reach, but I caught it just for a split second, the flash of a gray coat disappearing through the alley. He'd been inside, watching, listening. I turned back toward the house, my mother still frozen in the doorway. "We need help," I said. And this time, she didn't argue. It was barely dawn when Nolan called. I'd been up for hours already, sifting through photos, piecing together timelines, scrolling until my eyes burned and the clock bled toward morning. I thought I'd reached the edge of what I could handle, but then I picked up. "Elise," he said, breath short, "you need to come over, now." My chest clenched. "What happened?" "I found something, last night. Warehouse district. I got it on video." His voice wasn't panicked. It was worse. It was tight, controlled, like he didn't want to scare me until I saw it for myself. "I'm on my way." The sun hadn't even broken the horizon as I pulled up outside his apartment. The sky was pale, hushed, like it didn't want to know what we were about to uncover. Inside, Nolan met me at the door barefoot, hoodie zipped, dark circles dragging his face down. He didn't even say hello, just led me straight to his laptop. "Footage is from 2:17 a.m., he muttered. My motion sensor went off. I almost ignored it. He hit play. The warehouse footage flickered to life. Static. Then movement. Grainy, black and white, but unmistakable. Corinne. She stood at the edge of the loading bay, arms crossed, coat fluttering behind her like a villain out of a spy film. And next to her, the man. Scar on his jaw. The same one from the dash cam. Nolan paused the video and zoomed in. They were arguing. I couldn't get audio, but she kept pointing at something. Looked like a map or documents. He kept shaking his head. "Do you know what this place is?" "It's a shell property, technically owned by a company out of Nevada. Guess who's listed as the contact on file?" He pulled up the registration. C. Larson. Of course. I stared at the screen, heart hammering. This wasn't just a grift anymore. This was organized, patterned, and we had evidence of it unfolding right in our backyard. "You think this is where she's moving the money?" I asked. "Or something worse?" He clicked again. The next video showed them walking deeper into the warehouse, disappearing into darkness. They never came back into frame. "I don't know what's in there," Nolan said, "but I'm not going in alone." I turned away from the screen, paced toward the window. The city beyond looked so ordinary. Commuters, buses, bakery trucks humming down Burnside. But beneath that hum, something rotten pulsed. "She's got people," I said. "More than just him." "And she's still in Mom's house like none of this is happening." Nolan's voice dropped. "We have to get her out, before something happens." I turned back toward him. "We need leverage, more than just photos and speculation." He hesitated. "There's something else." I watched him carefully. A few weeks ago, before any of this started, I was setting up a backup system for Mom's network, just in case. Routine stuff. I didn't say anything because, honestly, I forgot. He clicked through to another folder. "This morning I checked the logs. Look at the timestamp." He pointed to an entry. "Remote access override, 1:42 a.m., while we were sleeping, while she was meeting her partner. She's been remotely accessing Mom's accounts from that warehouse. I traced the IP, same location." My blood ran cold. "She's stealing in real time. And if we hadn't caught this when we did," he didn't finish the sentence. I didn't need him to. We sat in silence for a long beat. "I'm calling Detective Harper," I said. "We need a paper trail. Official." "You think he'll believe you?" "I'll make him." Nolan stood and crossed to the window. "I still can't believe I ever liked her. She came in like this savior. Remember how Mom used to call her the glue? Said she kept our family from falling apart." My throat tightened. I remember. She was the one prying it apart the whole time. For a moment we both stood there, watching the sun rise over a city that didn't know what was coming. Then Nolan turned to me. "There's one more thing." My stomach dropped. "What?" He hesitated, then pulled out his phone. "I saw her again last night." I blinked. "What? After the warehouse?" He nodded. "At my apartment, just outside." I froze. She didn't knock. She didn't say anything, just stood there for a few minutes and left, like she wanted me to know she could. Ice spread through my veins. "She's threatening you now." Not directly, but yeah. We stared at each other. Something had shifted. We weren't just chasing ghosts anymore. She knew we were watching. She wanted us to feel it. Nolan handed me a flash drive. Everything's backed up. If something happens to me, don't, I cut in. Nothing's going to happen. But even as I said it, I felt the weight of something closing in. I left his place just after 9, heart pounding, eyes scanning every rearview mirror. When I got home, the apartment was quiet, too quiet. I double-checked the locks, closed the blinds, pressed my back to the door. Then my phone buzzed. New message, unknown number. You think you know everything. You don't. Stop before someone gets hurt. No name, no number, just dread crawling under my skin like a virus. But I wasn't stopping, not now. Because the more I uncovered, the more I realized this wasn't just about Corinne. It was about who'd let her in. The day began with wood splintering against metal. Portland police! Open up! 3 heartbeats later, my clock read 5:42 a.m. I was still in the jeans I'd fallen asleep in while diagramming Corinne's scam. The pounding kept rhythm with my pulse. When I opened the door, damp air rushed in alongside 2 officers in rain-slick jackets. Flashing lights reflected off puddles behind them, turning the hallway into a disorienting carnival of red and cobalt. Elise Caldwell? My voice came out papery. Yes. You're under arrest for wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit charity fraud. The warrant brushed my cheek as he read. Cold cuffs bit my wrists. Corinne moved first. Of course she did. As they marched me outside, Mrs. Doyle peeked through her door chain, clutching her cat. Rain flattened my hair while across the street, beneath a violet umbrella, Corinne watched. When our eyes met, she tilted her head and smiled. Small, triumphant, lethal. The cruiser door slammed. Humiliation was loud enough to replace a siren. My reflection wavered in the divider, a headline waiting to happen. Booking smelled of bleach and panic. Fingerprints, mugshot, belongings tagged, my flash drive, the proof of her crimes, now sealed as evidence against me. Micro-twitches betrayed me. Clenched jaw, trembling shoulders, breath stuck high in my chest. Detective Harrington led me to an interrogation room the color of wet cement and slid a stack of printouts across the metal table. Transfers from your IP at 1:47 a.m. $2.4 million. Explain. I was asleep. Corinne Larson spoofed my network. She's stealing from my mother's foundation. He arched a brow. Your mother's affidavit names you sole administrator. I stared at Verna's unmistakable signature. Lake House memories, her laughing at the helm while Corinne cheered, flipped to ash. She forged it, I told myself, but a whisper asked, or did Mom choose her side? I need a lawyer, I managed. Public defender's on the way, Harrington said, escorting me to holding. Gray walls, metal bench, rain tapping the barred slit of window, a metronome for dread. I replayed every overlooked warning. Corinne's security upgrades, her insistence on setting Mom's passwords, the USB that appeared in my purse. Trust had been weaponized. A guard returned. Visitor. Mom stepped into the booth, trench coat soaked, eyes swollen. Mom, please, you know I'd never touch your money. They showed me everything, Elise. Logs, transfers. Planted. Corinne framed me. Jealousy can make people do terrible things, she whispered. Check her portfolio. Seattle ID, fake name? She backed away, uncertainty flashing, then hardening, before the door closed behind her. Fear cooled into resolve. If Mom doubted, evidence had to shout louder. Hours later, Harrington summoned me to a humming server lab. Your brother just delivered warehouse footage and remote access logs. If they verify, you're clear. Hope sparked. But if Corinne knew Nolan brought proof, he was in her sights. While techs worked, they stashed me in a dim interview room. I paced, chain clinking, mind sprinting. Duplicate logs, subpoena her devices, prove Mom's signature was lifted. A metallic crash echoed outside. Harrington burst in. Anonymous tip now links you and your brother to a previous cyber attack. Someone staying ahead. Corinne had widened the trap. Left alone, I pressed my forehead to the table. The overhead camera blinked red. She set me up, I whispered, voice steady for the first time all day. And I'm going to prove it. A public defender, Ms. Tran, hair in a hurried knot, finally appeared, absorbing my rapid-fire account. Fake IDs, The Scarred Man, Bellevue, 2023. The warrant's tight, she sighed, but patterns help judges sleep. I'll dig. After she left, I lay on the bench, mapping cracks in the ceiling like constellations of mistakes, trusting too quickly, hesitating too long. Outside, a siren slipped down Burnside, another life unraveling. Dad's old advice drifted back. When cornered, collect facts like oxygen. One breath, one plan. 1. Nolan duplicates the logs off-site. 2. Force police to seize Corinne's laptop. 3. Hire a handwriting expert. Resolve settled like armor, but the night outside still felt hungry. Footsteps approached. The guard paused at my door, keys rattling like dice. They're moving you to county first thing. How many moves did I have left? The cell door opened with a shuddering groan, and for the first time in nearly 30 hours, I saw light that didn't hum behind plexiglass. A voice echoed down the hallway. You're being released. Charges dropped, pending further investigation. I blinked hard. What? Detective Harper's orders. Let's go. My limbs moved before my brain caught up. My hands ached from the cuffs, my mind from everything else. Outside, a gray sedan idled at the curb. Nolan leaned against it, arms crossed, eyes red but alive. The moment I saw him, something inside cracked and exhaled. Get in, he said quietly. I climbed into the passenger seat, rain flecking the windshield, the world sharp again. They dropped the charges? I asked, dazed. He nodded. They couldn't ignore the warehouse footage. Plus, Harper dug into that Golden Elm initiative after we pushed. It's a fake nonprofit, used in 2 other fraud investigations. Same layout, same digital signature. I stared at the dashboard, pulse trying to believe it was over. Where is Harper now? Building a case. He wants to meet. We drove in silence to a corner diner tucked between a laundromat and a locksmith's shop. Inside, Harper sat alone at a back booth, gray beard tugged tight against his jaw, eyes scanning the room like he'd never stopped working. He barely waited for us to sit. You were right about her. Larson. I ran a deeper trace. Bellevue wasn't her only play. She's popped up in Michigan, Vermont, even Quebec, always near nonprofits, always under a new name. He slid a folder across the table. Inside, bank records, tax returns, shell company ties that spiraled outward like poison veins. She's part of a larger ring, Harper said. And your mother's foundation? That was their next big score. My stomach twisted. So what happens now? We follow the money. He pulled out a series of transfers from Verna's trust account, all routed through a seemingly defunct interior design firm in Nevada. I scanned the numbers. This firm's a front? He nodded. Owned by someone called E. Danner, but the address links back to a P.O. box in Seattle. Corinne's old address. Harper continued. We're building a warrant for that warehouse. With your testimony, the surveillance footage, and Nolan's system logs, we've got probable cause. But she's slippery, Nolan added. She's probably already thinking 10 steps ahead. I thought of Corinne in that hallway mirror. Her smile, her calm. She wasn't done, not even close. Then we get there first, I said. We agreed to meet the next day to finalize details. Harper was getting the order signed. Nolan and I returned to his apartment to dig deeper. While Nolan booted up the system again, I paced the living room. The walls felt like they were closing in, not from fear, but from pressure. Truth stacking too fast. I've been thinking, I said. The man with the scar, the one at the warehouse, he never speaks in the videos. He avoids cameras. She's always the face. He's the ghost, Nolan muttered. She's the bait. Exactly. She's playing loyal partner while he stays invisible. He tapped a few keys and pulled up a new set of footage. Backlogged security footage Harper had sent over. One still caught my breath. Scar-jawed man seated alone at a coffee shop. In front of him, a check, handwritten, signed by Verna Caldwell. My breath caught. That's my mom's checkbook. Nolan zoomed in. Same handwriting, same ink. I knew it like I knew her voice. He looked at me. She never gave him that check herself. No, I said, but Corinne had access. The air shifted. I sat down, hands suddenly cold. They weren't just stealing from her. They were setting her up. Nolan's voice lowered. You think they were going to frame Mom? Or worse, what if they made it look like she was the one laundering the money? Silence thickened the air. I could feel my heart pounding against the quiet. Just then my phone buzzed. My phone. Unknown number 1 new voicemail. I put it on speaker. A voice crackled, mechanically distorted. "You're in over your head. Walk away now. You don't want what's coming next." The call cut. Nolan stood. "That's it. We're not staying here tonight." We packed fast. Laptops, drives, files, everything that mattered. We crashed at a friend's place across town. Harper would pick us up from there in the morning. Sleep didn't come easily. Somewhere around 3:00 a.m., I stared at the ceiling, mind racing with questions. Why hadn't Mom seen the signs sooner? Why hadn't I? And what if Corinne knew about the warehouse warrant already? Just as I began to drift, Nolan sat up. "I forgot to tell you something." "What?" He pulled out his phone. "Earlier tonight, I checked the firm's email logs. Danner's address forwarded something just before we arrived at Harper's Diner." "What kind of something?" He turned the phone so I could see. It was a list of names, donors, account numbers, and at the bottom, recipient, Corinne Larson, subject, final move. The timestamp, exactly 30 minutes before my arrest. The warehouse loomed like something out of a dream I hadn't wanted to return to. Concrete dark with rain, its rusted siding catching faint reflections of passing traffic. It sat there, quiet but watchful, like it knew we were coming. I sat in the back of Harper's unmarked SUV, heart racing too fast for the seatbelt to feel like enough protection. "You sure she'll come?" he asked from the front, voice low. "She'll come," I said. "Corinne always finishes what she starts. She likes to see the end." And this was the end, or at least it needed to be. Nolan handed me the flash drive we'd labeled Proof Final. His hands were steady, but I caught him chewing the inside of his cheek, a habit he hadn't had since middle school. He didn't have to say it. I knew what it meant. We had one shot. If this didn't work, she'd vanish again, reinvent, move on, and everything Mom built would be gone. I tucked the drive into the lining of my coat. The plan was simple: bait Corinne to the warehouse under the pretense of returning what she'd lost, her leverage, the flash drive. But it was loaded with a tracking program and a packet of falsified internal emails we knew she'd react to. She thought I was desperate. She had no idea I was done playing defense. At 7:12 p.m., headlights splashed across the lot. A black Audi pulled in and killed the engine. Corinne stepped out alone. Same camel coat, same heels, same easy, confident gait. She looked like she was arriving at a donor dinner, not the crime scene of her own making. "Don't engage unless she turns hostile," Harper muttered. "We need her on record." I nodded once, then pushed the door open and stepped into the cold. She met me halfway between the car and the loading dock. "Elise," she smiled, as if we hadn't gone to war the week before. "You've been busy." "I brought what you wanted." She raised an eyebrow. "Did I say I wanted anything?" I pulled out the flash drive, held it up. "You did. You just weren't careful about who was listening." A flicker passed through her eyes. Then she laughed, soft, condescending. "I'm impressed," she said. "I underestimated how much fire you'd keep after they booked you. You shouldn't have." "Still," she cocked her head, "you dragged me here. Why? You think I'm going to confess in the middle of a parking lot?" I gestured to the warehouse door. "Let's go inside." She hesitated. Just a moment, but then she stepped forward. We entered through the rusted side entrance. The air was sharp with the smell of old oil and mildew. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting long shadows across cracked concrete. "This where you keep your receipts?" I asked. She glanced around. "No, but it's where we used to count the cash." We stood in the center of the room. She turned to me fully now, something sharper glinting in her expression. "Give it to me," she said. I held the flash drive tight. "You first." She reached into her coat and pulled out a manila envelope, tossed it onto a crate between us. "Bank records, signed letters, everything you want. Consider it. A parting gift." I stepped forward, reached for the envelope. Her eyes flicked down, just a flick, and that's when I saw it. The gun. She'd tucked it behind the crate, half hidden under a discarded tarp. Her hand started to drift toward it. I didn't hesitate. "Now, Harper!" The warehouse doors burst open. Officers poured in. Floodlights blinded us for half a second. "Hands where we can see them!" someone shouted. Corinne froze. Then, something I hadn't expected, she smiled. She raised her hands slowly, the way someone might lift them to stretch after a nap. "I figured it'd end like this," she said. "You're under arrest for fraud, conspiracy, identity theft." Harper stepped forward, voice hard, but Corinne didn't flinch. "You think this ends with me?" she said, turning to me. "This whole time, you thought I was the one pulling the strings?" I felt the words hit before I could absorb them. "What are you talking about?" She laughed, but this time there was something wild in it. "You'll see," she said, "sooner than you think." Officers cuffed her and let her out. She didn't resist. She didn't plead. She looked over her shoulder and locked eyes with me and mouthed one word: "Checkmate." The warehouse emptied quickly after that. Harper stayed to oversee the evidence collection. Nolan and I sat on the hood of his car, silent, watching Corinne's taillights vanish around the bend. We'd done it, except something still gnawed at me. The manila envelope she brought, blank, nothing inside, a prop. She never intended to walk out of there clean. And if she'd let herself be caught, that meant someone else was still out there, pulling the strings. And maybe, just maybe, we'd been looking at the wrong person all along. Corinne's smile haunted me long after the squad car disappeared. But it was over. At least that's what I kept telling myself as Harper led us back inside the warehouse, now crawling with forensics and evidence techs. The lights cast everything in washed-out yellow. I stared at the manila envelope still sitting on the crate, empty as her promises. "You're sure she didn't send anything else?" Harper asked. I nodded slowly. "She wanted us to think it was finished, but she's still playing." He looked at Nolan. "You said there was an email, right? From the Danner account?" Nolan pulled it up on his phone and handed it over. Harper studied the screen. "Final move. Looks like she gave everything to her partner." I exhaled hard. "The man with the scar." "We've ID'd him," Harper said. "Name's Marcus Danner, real estate broker in Seattle. But he's also connected to shell companies across 3 states. IRS has a file, FBI too." "So where is he now?" I asked. Harper's jaw tightened. "Gone. Left town before Corinne showed up here. But not before cleaning out the Nevada account." I leaned against the cold wall, pulse rising again. "So she let herself get caught." "To buy him time," Harper finished. The room fell silent. The buzzing lights, the rain slicking down metal outside, it all felt too still. "She didn't lose," I said quietly. "She just passed the baton." Back at the precinct, Harper filed the final charges against Corinne. Wire fraud, identity theft, conspiracy, obstruction, 20 years worth. But her only comment in custody? "I told you it wasn't over." She never mentioned Marcus, never gave him up, and we couldn't touch him without her. That night, Mom came to my apartment. Her knock was soft, no urgency, just presence. She stepped inside slowly, umbrella dripping, coat soaked from the drizzle. She looked smaller than I remembered, or maybe I was just seeing her clearly for the first time in weeks. "I was wrong," she said, voice low. I didn't speak. She walked into the living room and sat down, smoothing her skirt over her knees. I believed in Corinne. I wanted to believe that someone still saw good in me, that I hadn't become obsolete. My throat tightened. "You're not obsolete, Mom. You just let the wrong person stay too close." She nodded. "And I hurt you in the process." We sat there, quiet, the space between us finally honest. She reached into her bag and handed me a small velvet pouch. Inside, my father's watch. "I think you're ready," she said. "Not to run a foundation, not to chase thieves, just ready, to own my voice again." The next morning, I opened my laptop and uploaded the full story, every document, every file. Corinne's aliases, the fake IDs, the wire transfers. I published it under my byline. Title: "The Woman Who Almost Stole My Mother's Legacy." The article went viral in under 12 hours. 3 days later, the FBI raided one of Marcus Danner's properties in Tacoma. They didn't find him, but they found 3 more identities, 4 passports, and a black binder with a list of targets. Our name was circled in red. Harper called it a near miss. I called it survival. Corinne took a plea deal, 10 years minimum. She never gave up Marcus, but she underestimated what silence can cost you. Because when you've stolen from people who trusted you, your name doesn't just fade, it burns. And she'll wear the scars of her own mask longer than any prison sentence. As for me, I moved out of the apartment where I first found the USB, started writing again. Real stories, the kind that dig deep even when it hurts. Nolan joined a nonprofit fraud unit in Portland. Apparently, the experience left a mark. He said it feels good, knowing he's keeping someone else's mother safe now. Mom started over too. Smaller foundation, fewer checks, but more hands-on. We talk every Sunday, not about money, just life. And one rainy afternoon, as we walked through the community garden she helped rebuild, she squeezed my hand and said, "You saved me." But the truth is, I saved myself. Because betrayal doesn't just teach you who to fear. It teaches you who you are when everything safe is stripped away. I'm Elise Caldwell, daughter, writer, witness, and survivor. If this story hit close to home, or you've ever had someone lie with a smile and steal with a hug, please take a moment to like, comment, and share this video. Subscribe for more true stories that cut deep, and if you're still healing from betrayal, know this: you're not alone. I'll see you in the next one.